Okay, we will call this council meeting of Thursday, August the 8th to order. I'd like to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting on the unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq. And let's stand for the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I'm gonna turn those back on. I think, yes, just the far door. Yep. Okay, record of attendance, and Deputy Mayor will be here. He's just going to be a little bit late. What's that? Don't need a motion if he's going to be late, should we?
No, he's going to be late as soon as the attendance is.
Yeah. Okay. Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? Okay, and then if you get to an agenda item, you can certainly declare then. Approval of the agenda, please. Okay, Councillor Bell, Councillor Lesser, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Approval of minutes, Town Council, July 11th.
So moved.
Councillor Cleveland? Councillor Dayers, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Committee of the Whole, July 25th. Councillor Hatfield, second by the other Councillor Hatfield. Do I have a third Councillor Hatfield? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. And we had a special Town Council, July 25th. Councillor Lesser, Councillor Cleveland, any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have a public hearing, 9A, and it is for 120 Stars Road. So the motion would be to pass the second reading to the proposed amending development agreement for 120 Stars Road. So what happens here is I will ask, because it's a public meeting, public hearing, I'll ask 3 times if anybody in the audience would like to speak to this one, the 120 Stars Road issue. I'll ask 3 times. If anyone in the audience wants to speak, you can come up to the microphone, give us your name and where you live, and you can share whatever details you want to share with us. I will say that council doesn't make a decision right after this, but it will come up on the business arising right after. So it'll just be a separate agenda item. So I will ask 3 times. Does anybody want to speak on 120 Stars Road? It's, yeah, the development. What's that? Development agreement at 120 Stars Road? Yeah, Canadian Tire. Yeah, do you want to say what it is?
Yeah, it's regarding accessory storage buildings on the property. So yeah, it's just amending the existing agreement, which limits the number of storage buildings. The land use bylaw has recently been amended to increase property owners or businesses' ability to have outside storage buildings. The development agreement now is less than everybody else in the town with commercial property. So this just brings.
I'm just thinking of the natural estuary that's there. So,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm asking.
Yep. So does anybody want to speak to this? Okay, a second time I'll ask, would anyone like to speak to this item? Okay, and a third time, would anyone like to speak to this item? Okay, hearing no one, we will move on to business arising, 10A, and the recommended motion there is the same, that council pass second reading to the proposed amending development agreement for 120 Stars Road. Okay, Councillor Dayers, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, new business. 11A, Moody's Lane. The recommended motion there is that council grant temporary access of 23 Moody's Lane to Freshmark for staff on-site parking. Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Lesser. Discussion on this one? Go ahead, Councillor Dayers.
Just for the interest of the public, I believe this is just during a construction phase, expansion that he's undertaking.
Construction.
Thank you.
phase. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion, questions, anything? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. 11B, tender results. So this recommended motion is that council award the tender for 2024 sewer flushing, cleaning, and video inspection to Loomer's Pumping Service. Councillor Hatfield, second by Councillor Hatfield. Discussion on this one? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for our information, we have the quotes here from the two bidders that were considered. Was there an estimate that staff had in mind for what they expected it would cost? And how close to that estimate was the low and successful bidder? I guess I'm just looking at what's inflation, where are we in terms of the inflationary spiral?
Yeah, so I can't answer that without
Okay.
without last year's in front of me, but I can tell you that what we do in terms of video inspection, cleaning and so on, we set an annual budget and then we go to tender and get as much as we can. I know that if we're losing ground due to inflation, that the Director of Public Works looks to try to keep up and add some to the budget to compensate. I don't have his comments on whether this falls within his expected range or not.
I just would comment that there is a significant variance between the two bids, and obviously one of them was very competitive, so happy to support it.
Any more questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, 11C. This is the variance appeal, 45 Water Street. Okay, so what we have here, council, is a hearing scheduled to consider an appeal submitted by Mr. Michael R. Innes, representing the Bluewood Group, Inc., and they own 190 Main Street, and Randall Blobel, the co-owner of 10 Pearl Street. The appeal is seeking to overturn a decision of the development officer to vary the minimum size of an abutting yard setback at 45 Water Street. The variance application was submitted by Steve Corcom on behalf of Yarmouth Sea Products that own the subject lot at 45 Water Street. The variance is being sought by the applicant to allow for an intended addition to their existing boat shop. There will be an opportunity for the appellant and the applicant or their representatives, I think the applicant's here, to speak directly to council in order to make an argument as to why the development officer's decision should be overturned or upheld. Pursuant to section 237(1) of the MGA, in this hearing, council will be acting as a quasi-judicial decision-making body. In this capacity, council may make any decision that the development officer could have made. And we may not be aware of what all of those decisions are, but whatever our discussion leads to, that everybody's here to help us make sure that we're on the track of what is allowed. Okay? So I would ask the development officer to present his report.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome.
Martin Beck, Estate Development Officer on this application. Good to be here. I think it's my first time in front of council, so. So as mentioned, we're here to discuss an appeal at 45 Water. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. Quick background, it's my understanding we don't see too many variances. And so I thought I'd quickly just sort of go over some key sections in the MGA, what variances do, don't do, and so forth. So as shown on this slide, the process or the variance is a tool, a planning tool that allows development officers to relax certain rules in the land use bylaw. And that may include, in certain jurisdictions, parking. That could include, like here, setbacks and yards. Otherwise, providing more flexibility to a fairly rigid process that the zoning bylaw offers.
If council, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can hold them or you can ask right on the spot, whatever's
Jump in is totally
most
fine.
comfortable, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Before this variance, and I'm kind of flow between general comments and the specific to this application, the representative of the landowner inquired about their desire to accommodate a addition, as mentioned by the mayor. And so the staff offered the landowner a couple options. One of them is a variance, which was ultimately used. The second one is an amendment to the land use bylaw and MPS, which is also available process for them to use. We had offered both. Ultimately, the landowner decided to use the variance for two reasons, I believe. Well, one is much quicker process, but two, it's very similar.
Okay, are we doing this? Yeah, you'll. So you'll have that, you'll cover all that, and then we have a spot here for you to come up and ask all your questions. Yeah.
And the second reason is when we look at the notification processes between variances and amendments to MPS or LEBs, they're in some ways similar as we ought to notify landowners that reside or own properties within 100 feet of the subject site that a decision has been made. The slight difference between variance and MPS amendments or LEB amendments is that with that process, we would notify the landowner that a decision is about to make and attend council hearing. With variance, we notify the landowners that a decision on variance has been made, and they have their options to learn more about it or come or appeal it to council like happened in this case. So a quick summary of what happened in this situation. In June, as I mentioned, the owner of 45 Water Street applied and submitted a variance application. The intent here is to reduce setbacks shared with non-industrial, in other words, residential properties to the east. The variance application was reviewed and approved on July 4th, the same day where we had issued letters to adjacent landowners explaining what was approved and the process through which interested parties may appeal our decision. The appeal that is including your packages, I believe attachment 1 to the report has been submitted on July 19th. Now, the province has recently introduced a few changes to who and how and what may be appealed. And that includes introducing grounds for appeal, where the MGA clearly states that any submission or appeal submission must very clearly identify the reasons for their opposition to the decision made. In our view, the submission or the appeal that's in front of you does meet the spirit and intent of the grounds of appeal. Therefore, is recommendation that council does hold the hearing like you are today. And as the mayor explained already, Section 237 of the MGA essentially offers or directs council when dealing with appeals to make any decision that the development officer could have made on the variance. Quick, I have a couple slides just on context. I'm sure everybody knows the area, but so on this slide we have Water Street on the left, we have Pearl Street on the bottom. The very east end of the property in brown is subject to the variance that we're discussing today. 10 Pearl Street shown on the slide, as well as 190 Main Street. Aerial of the site and adjacent properties. Again, 45 water with the existing boat shop and the storage in the east on the east portion of the site within the setback area. 10 Pearl and 190 Main Street. You can also see the access to the site. And I talked about a little bit where the nature of industrial operations require quite a bit of space to maneuver boats in and out of the shop and clear access to Water Street, which did contribute to in our decision making. A quick slide on zoning. The subject lot is industrial waterfront, or I'm sorry, waterfront industrial, shown in blue. The adjacent lots are residential R1. The lots or the lands in green are also residential with slightly different designation. So this is a slide that discusses the specific rule that we had varied. The typical or the land use bylaw requirement asks for 20 feet or 6.1 meters. In situations where these industrial properties back onto or adjacent to residential, institutional, and I believe open space zones, that's correct. Generally speaking, the intent is to provide separation, some breathing room. As we know, these industrial operations can be noisy, they can be odors, or it can be a mix of things. It generally is not common to residential properties, hence a slightly bigger setback. Now, the 20 feet may sound like a lot. Just to give you a sense, 20 feet is a fairly typical setback on most residential properties we have. So it's not a great deal of space, but it's there to provide a little bit more than for example, a 10-foot setback that we also have in our bylaw in certain zones. This is the rule explained visually. It also shows the anticipated addition. We believe it's about 20 feet of depth, essentially adding to the existing building. This area in green covers or essentially shows the existing setback of 20 feet from the eastern lot line. Now, this is a shot of the subject site, which would be on the left-hand side where you see the boat shop and the existing storage activities, more or less within the setback area and the adjacent residential lot. Now, it doesn't show really well, and again, most of you know the area very well. I don't, so I had to do a site visit on a number of occasions, but there's a significant grade difference. I didn't dare to guesstimate, but if you look at the trailer, which is about 8 feet in height, and you look at the elevation of the yard with a residential property, it's at par. So we could say 8 to 10 feet, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. That's why I didn't say the exact number. I didn't have the geodetic information available. What you also see is whether it's a natural or whether it was done during construction, more or less a berm, together with quite heavy foliage and vegetation. Now, does it provide sufficient separation between industrial uses and residential? A bit subjective, but certainly it's it is a buffer that exceeds buffering situations in many other areas that I'm familiar with or have seen. And so what I just talked about, again, a big contributor towards us being comfortable granting the variance, and this is the visual representation of the variance where the green area all of a sudden represents 10 feet and the potential addition could proceed depending on outcome of today's meeting. Now, the green area, the 10 feet, really that would be the part where it steeps quite a bit up. So that is essentially off limits for any type of development. At one point, I believe there was a thought of putting a fence, and there may be a fence of some type, but it's simply too steep for anything reasonable, anything developable, anything functional. And so that area is off limits. The anticipated addition would be on the flatter part and essentially extend over the existing storage that you've seen on the previous image. In terms of what MGA tells us and how we have to think about variances, there's 3 points. We may not be able to grant variance where we believe that the variance would violate the intent of LUB, where the difficulty experience is general to properties in the area, and finally, difficulty experience results from intentional disregard. So that would mean something like the developer had gone out and done something ahead of required approvals. Obviously, that's not the case in this instance. The point B is a challenging one for me as a new development officer to Nova Scotia to understand, but or interpret, I should say. But in speaking to my colleagues across province and obviously in town, a good example would be you have a residential lot with a boulder at the back of it, and hence you have to push the building in front and encroach into front setback, or like in this case, where you have a significant slope on a site, which designs essentially and guides where access could be from and where parking can or cannot go. So essentially limits developability and function of the property. And finally, violates the intent. I sort of spoke about the intent of the abutting yard setback, what it does, what it's intended to do, and what we believe that is still achieved given the mix of the separation, given the mix of the existing vegetation, and given the intent to essentially enclose the existing outdoor storage into a building. I'm not saying that the situation may improve. We're simply saying that we believe that the variance doesn't violate the intent of the specific rule. A bit of a summary. I think this is almost last slide. We completely acknowledge that there may be some impact to the residential property to the east. 10 feet is 10 feet. And so extending into the setback by 10 feet could present additional massing impact at Pearl Street. I did speak about the great difference. I'm not going to do that. I spoke about limited opportunities, to further sort of develop the lot. Also spoke about that. We discussed quickly that the operations already extend in a setback, and so the intent to enclose it potentially may improve the situation. And the last piece there that I didn't really cover real well is, and perhaps it will be for the appellant or for the applicant to speak to that, is that the operations on the lot require certain requirements, and again, the design of the building is intended to support that. With that, Mayor, it is our recommendation that following the presentation from the applicant and the appellant, Council upholds the development officer's decision and dismisses the appeal. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Does anyone on council have any questions for the planner? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cleveland.
Thank you, Your Worship. The question I'm asking, I guess, is about exactly where you're looking for the abutment, because we're seeing a couple of different angles here, and so I find it a little bit, I want clarity. Is it figure 3, which is the existing storage within the rear yard? Is that where the abutment will change?
Yes.
Okay, so there's green foliage kind of blocking the two areas. Is that foliage in 10 Pearl Street land, or is it the boat builder's land? And it raises, it seems to go up, is that
Okay.
right?
Could I refer you to figure 2, please? Just a page ahead of that. Just if you go to figure 2.
Figure 2, yeah?
Yes. So the existing foliage or the vegetation extends more or less across the length of the property line between the subject lot and 10 Pearl Street.
Okay.
It actually encroaches a little bit beyond that. Now,
I'm sorry, can you repeat that or show the,
I do not actually, I don't have the, so figure 2 is only in your packages. I don't have figure
Okay.
2 on here, but what I do have is this, this image here. It doesn't have the property line, but if you see the metal post in the middle of the lot, or so,
That's across the street, that has nothing to do with this proposal. It's not even into pictures of something across, that's a welding shop across the street.
if you,
More clear.
Okay, where's the aerial shot?
We've got the aerial shot. If you go down, if you just go down to the second page.
so this photo on this slide is looking north.
Okay,
The boat shop on the left-hand side.
That's not
The residential property on the right-hand side.
That's not the boat shop. Okay,
So if you look at the aerial,
here, that's the one we're looking at. That's the one we're asking about.
and I'm sorry if I'm calling it boat shop by mistake, it was not intended. I should have called it industrial building perhaps.
Yeah.
The last time I checked, there was a big boat being built, hence I called it boat shop.
Yep, okay.
Okay, and so what you saw on the previous picture is essentially shot where I was standing more or less in the, I don't know if you can see the mouse here.
Yep, we can actually.
Right there, taking the picture about right there, pointing north. And so this is the overhead of the existing trailer, or C-can, I should say. Yeah, no problem. I wasn't clear enough, so that's no problem at all. So again, the red is the C-can. That's 45 Water Street. This is the existing industrial building. This is 10 Pearl Street.
all right, so from this overhang, you can see the C-can that's sitting there.
Yes.
Is that going to disappear? The extension going to go 10 feet or whatever? Is that what I'm looking at? Is that where?
Yes.
Okay,
So what you'll see is very likely that the C-can that on this image, again looking north,
right.
to disappear and make way for a 20-foot addition. That 20 feet of addition will extend, subject to this decision, 10 feet into the required setback.
Right. Okay. And then the rest of it, because that's kind of sitting, where that's sitting, it's sitting kind of in like there's a driveway or a pathway, if you will.
From Haskell.
That will disappear. You'd have that. Would there be greens? Does there have to be by law be green space in between that abutment, or would somebody create a driveway through the back of that, or is that illegal?
A good question for the applicant, but if I have to speculate, I would suggest that that very back end, the 10 feet, will be left untouched.
Okay.
And all you're going to see is the very flat portion of the, essentially the 20 feet on which can be built.
Right.
That will make way for the addition.
Okay.
So there will be, it will be, sure, there's 10 feet of property, but the 10 feet of property is highly undevelopable in my opinion. Because it includes it's a very steep slope, and it's
Yes.
got a lot of foliage on it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
That's the boat property, right? Okay. Good, okay, Counselor Dares?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to get, I guess, the same question that Councillor Cleveland was asking. So looking at the aerial photograph, would some of the green, the foliage, be required to take some of that foliage in order to extend the building? I'm just trying to get where the extra,
I know, I understand the intent of your question. What I'm trying to think about quickly in my mind, whether or not, if council approves the variance, whether or not the land use bylaw would require the existing vegetation to remain. If I'm remembering, there's additional rule behind the one we were varying that talks about open storage. And open storage is allowable within the 20-foot setback, like it's happening today, but you need a berm, a fence, or landscaping. It doesn't talk about a berm, landscaping, or a fence if you're meeting the 20-foot abutting setback. So if we were to relax that, like we're discussing today, I don't believe that by law there would be a requirement to maintain it. Now, I would suggest that would be the most logical way to go about it, because once you get into that 10 feet, you're getting into retaining walls, a highly complex construction, and challenges with water management. And so retaining that strip as is in the current condition would be highly advisable. Now, there will be no bylaw requiring that if you do vary that. And I stand to be corrected, but based on my understanding of the entire section of the rule we're dealing with, that is my best interpretation at this point.
okay, so I'm understanding from that if the variance is permitted, that there's no conditions that could be imposed upon the building owner.
To maintain
Okay.
the berms
And
so forth, yes.
is the extension of the building, is it a 20-foot extension or a 10-foot extension?
I'll do my best here. It's a 20-foot extension, short
Okay.
answer. The existing setback is 20 feet. We would be encroaching 10 feet into the 20-foot setback with the 20-foot addition.
Okay,
So there's a lot of 20s and 110s.
thank you.
There's 30 feet, there's 30 feet,
Correct.
all right? There's 30 feet, and we're going 10 feet over. So the extra 10 feet, as I understand it, and both counselors have asked this question, so the rest of that property on the right, the green, outside the anticipated 20-foot addition, that is foliage, right? That's,
Right.
no?
Right there. So essentially what you see, this is just a visual of a setback. Didn't mean to suggest that all of the green is foliage. It's not.
No,
It's
okay.
just to illustrate a setback area. But this one happens to show both. It's a setback and more or less the extent of the foliage.
Gotcha, okay. Okay. Counselor Bell?
Thank you, Your Worship. So my question is, I guess, pretty simple, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Under our bylaws, our development officer is given the authority to approve variances up to a certain percentage. Is that right?
That's correct.
And this
Well, I'm sorry. I would have to slightly adjust that. Before I do that, can you just repeat what you just said so I'm getting it right? I'm going to rephrase. I believe you just said that under our land use bylaw, there's a certain percentage to which we can vary regulation or rules, correct?
Yeah.
So that's not accurate, actually. What it is that there is no such thing that says we can only approve up to 50% or 10% or 55%. There used to be a rule in the MGA that talked about variances minor and major, and the minor ones were up to 50%. That MGA rule no longer exists, but given the long-standing tenure of our development officer and the experience, they had kept that rule in play, and so that established practice has continued in town of Yarmouth, where we generally do not approve variances beyond 50%. But there's nothing in the bylaw that says that we must or must not do that.
That's great. Thank you for that. That updates my education. But going back to the original question or point, it is within the development officer's jurisdiction to grant the variant that has been granted. Is that fair to say? It's within that staff person's authority to do that, to make that decision.
Yes, what I did was within my
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah, okay. And so just for my, maybe nobody knows this, but I think that facility has I mean, there's a boat shop on it now, but it has a long-standing history as an industrial property. My recollection, and I may be wrong, is that used to be Garson's metal junkyard, basically, when I was a kid growing up. And then it was did it belong to Cuttrow's Machine Works, or was that another property, the machine shop? Bottom line is that I think it's been industrial as long as I've been alive. Would that, anybody? Okay, so
I grew up across the street from there, so.
right? So I think that our recollection is relatively clear that that is an industrial property, long-standing. In fact, I would be worried about digging on the back of that property, frankly, for fear that there might be things that are buried there. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. I think that answers my questions, which were basically the industrial nature of the property, the gradient, the difference in the gradient between Water Street and Main Street, and how that would affect the impact on surrounding property owners. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so I would now ask the appellant or representative if you have any comments. You have a presentation and you can state your name, introduce yourself, and
Thank you. Michael Innes.
yep, I might need the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, you'll need the microphone. You can sit down by all means.
No, right?
Get comfortable and there, it's easier that way.
Ladies and gentlemen, so when this letter first came to my attention, it caused a lot of concern just because of the sheer amount of effort that we put into that property as myself as a project manager, and our neighbor Randall has been improving the property all the time. The biggest problem I have is the fact that already at this stage of the game, we do have a lot of fumes that come across, and that's without the barrier, or with the barrier there. So there's a lot of fumes right now. Also property value.
Also what?
Property value.
Okay.
When you have a warehouse behind a heritage home that's been there, the Garson home is the one we're speaking of, 150 plus years, and then you put, aluminum siding behind that, it takes away from the ocean what's there and everything else like that. That was another concern that I illustrated in, I'm not sure if everybody has a copy of this, or?
That would be in the package, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll put my glasses on and go point by point then. The property has been zoned residential and creates a natural buffer between the industrial activities on Water Street and the residential community, which speaks for itself. And again, it has been there for a very long time. It used to be the Garson's junkyard, but they kept their residential space and the junkyard separate, right? The applicant runs a commercial enterprise that manufactures large commercial fishing vessels. This employs the use of many materials which would be detrimental to the health of any occupancies of abutting properties without a natural buffer, meaning that does make a huge difference when the fans are on and fiberglass is being done or whatever, and I'm sure I'm not up to, I'm sure it's epoxy or whatever now.
When they do work in that shop, they open the big front door, they got a back door in front, and when they sand, all the dust comes out through the back door. Which, when that building was supposed to be built, going to Morris Lloyd, there was supposed to be vents put on that building. There's never been a vent.
This is Randall Blauvett from
Yes.
10.
And
We need him to have the microphone. You can by all means grab a chair there and, yeah, just speak into the microphone because we have to have the information.
okay, like I said before, when they do work in there on the boats and sanding and stuff, they open up the big front doors. They got a back door they open wide open, and all the sand dust comes up through when the wind's blowing across from the harbor. And all the fumes and that comes raining. Sometimes I gotta even leave my house in order through the day, 'cause I can't stand the smell of the fumes into my own house.
How long have you lived there, Mr.?
Probably about 16 years. I was there before they built the building. And that was another thing. I got the letter 4 days before they built the building, and they're already digging the foundation. Now, that letter should have been, I would thought, send registered mail, so they wouldn't know I got it, not just in the common mail. What if somebody's on vacation, and you only got a certain amount of time to answer her letter?
Can we move on with the next
Yes.
point?
My next point is that building they're gonna build, is that on back of that building? Now, from what I can see now, before they built it, my bank used to be sloped like this. You could walk down it. Now they got it like this. Now, ain't that a dangerous property that they made?
So the bank on their property is...
Well, from my bank property and their property combined. And before they dug it, I could walk down that slope with no problem. Now they got it like this. And that makes that a dangerous property, and they never done nothing to stop.
No retaining wall.
No retaining, no overall, and nothing, no fencing.
That was one of the concerns that I came to this meeting, aside from what I proposed to you, was the fact that I'm very worried about undermining because of the slope of the properties. The Garson House is a rock foundation, and any digging down there or any disturbance could make that whole building slip so far that it would be detrimental to the property. It's a 150-year-old building built on a stone foundation. When you excavate behind that on a downward slope, and I've been doing this for 40 years in construction, every level. I understand engineers' reports, I know soil engineering, all of this. And this is crazy. It just doesn't make any sense when it could be added to the other side of this building or somewhere else. You know, we already don't have the retaining wall that should be there. Okay, so to add to that and dig more out of that bank and make our properties susceptible to slippage and undermining, just the water undermining alone could take it down the hill. Is a point. I think we've talked about the fumes, so that's not. But we have dedicated, this property to natural species as well. There's a lot of birds. I've got cardinals in the yard all the time when I'm mowing the lawn. We are neighbors on the property, and we always try to improve it back to the stage when it was when the Garsons had it, because I heard it was a wonderful garden, and that's what we're trying to get back to, right? As well as spent tens of thousands of dollars doing the electrical and plumbing in the Garson House to make it back to what it was. So, and a landmark, obviously, in the community. And to have, like I said, if you have a big steel shed up behind your, instead of that green space, like, what's the point? This happened on another property owned by the group that I manage properties for, which was 9 Elm Street. when a park was taken over and fourplexes were put in without any notification. No notification, approved again, early by the planning department. This has never happened across Canada and internationally. I'm talking San Francisco, everything else like that. I deal with public all the time, city councils all the time. Never do you approve something before you consult the property owners, ever. So I don't understand why this is backwards. And this is why I was so shocked and why we had to come up with this proposal so quickly, is because we had no idea until we get a letter and say, oh, you've got so many days, otherwise we're doing it. Terrible. But I guess the rest was just notes that I made. But the natural barrier, I mean, it's so necessary there, even for the beauty of the street from Maine. When you look down from Maine and then you see these beautiful homes, you know, you don't want to see steel shot sticking up over them. And it may not go for the height requirement, it still doesn't matter, that's what you see, right? It's the industrial has a nice barrier right now. Why are we changing that? And should be concerned maybe about reinforcing that so that, you know, we have no slippage when it's been over excavated over the years to make room for sea cans and stuff like that. You can dig it out, slide your sea can, right? And from what I do understand, and limited access and limited time to the original proposal for the shop was that it was supposed to be closer to Water Street. And that's something to look into. I'm not 100% sure, and I can't verify that, but that's what I understand by speaking to neighbors and people that were in the community at the time. That was supposed to be, you know, closer down, so that I think if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
So are you finished
Yes.
so far? Okay, so council, any questions for the appellants? Go ahead, councillor.
I just have a question for the planner, actually. So if this addition was made, will it impede into that embankment?
Yeah, we need the microphone.
Like looking at where the container is now, and then the embankment's on the other side, so would it go into that embankment, or would it just be where?
Now, will it go into the existing slope? If it's 20 feet, it will not. If you grant a variance of 10 feet, it can go any more than 20 feet from the existing edge of the building. Now, I'll leave it at that. So essentially, if the variance is granted 10 feet, it cannot go into that steep slope, which is about 10 feet from the existing property line.
Okay, so if we grant, if this is approved, it would not go into the embankment?
Now, I'll be amiss, that's correct. I'll be amiss to sort of, if I didn't say that, depending on the construction type, you know, I'm not in a position to say, will the construction require any type of improvement to the bank? If necessary, I simply don't know. I don't have the information, but
Yeah.
sort of your question, you know, I wasn't sure if you're asking about that or if you're asking about simply spacing-wise. Spacing-wise, it would not. Would there be any mitigation measures required? I do not know from this point, from this position.
But those would, one would assume, be improvements made, like the retaining wall that the gentleman has spoke about, or something to that
If one would
measure?
be required, and again, I'm not in a position to say whether it would or would not, or whether or how the potential construction would impact the slope, but if one would be required, you could assume that yes, it would likely help, not hurt, but I've seen very different situations as well where you remove existing foliage and actually the situation worsens even with the additional retaining wall. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, no, that's up to them. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, can we pass him back yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Because when we talk about how far it's going to go back, that's not the construction zone. That construction zone is going to go another 10 feet because you cannot crib a wall, you cannot do anything without room around your job site to build that building. So to say that, oh, it'll finish here, does not mean that it won't dig into that bank even further while they're doing all the construction. And again, it's so dangerous because you've got compaction, that's vibrations running through rock foundations, cracking them up. I mean, it's pointless when there's other spots on the property where they can make this addition or smarter ways to make the addition rather than hurting what's already there. And ultimately, whenever you dig, that's exactly what's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to hit. It was a junkyard before. What if you hit 5 oil tanks and then that pulls more of the bank away that's already settled? You know, there's just no purpose in it.
Okay, any more questions, council? Go ahead, councillor.
I'm not sure who the question's for, but who would determine and at what point if there was a retaining wall or something that would be needed? How is that determined if a retaining wall was needed to be put in place? Is it just the property owner decides that they weren't going to do it, or would the planner suggest that it needs to be done for safety?
Thank you for the question. Typically, we would involve, in something like this, we would likely involve the town engineer. And so what could happen if required, we would likely have the ability to request additional supporting work from the applicant, developer, or their consultant to ensure that whether the construction area or the addition itself would or would not require additional work to the slope. If I can add one more comment, not directly to the question, but what I failed to kind of mention is that the 10-foot variance is not a build-to line. Doesn't mean that one has to use and utilize the entire 10 feet potentially granted by you today. It's an allowance to use it, but should there be technical challenges exceeding the benefits associated with the development itself, one simply doesn't have to build 10 feet past the existing 20 feet. It's just a piece I meant to mention earlier, and I didn't, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davis.
So you've already answered my previous question, and that it's impossible to impose conditions. Having said that, I have a long background in negotiation and mediation, and it seems to me that there has to be some common ground or some way for the landowners and the developer to come to some kind of a consensus as to what's permissible. And I don't see us being the vehicle for that. I'm wondering if there's any way to bring the two parties together and see if there's any way that there can be a compromise that works in favor of both.
We would support that, possibly not today, but we can sit down and discuss some possible options and maybe take a better look at the properties. But again, the biggest concern is that shaking the ground there is not conducive.
I have heard the gentleman speak about the fact that when the back door opens, the dust blows up, and so those kind of things can be remedied.
With better filters.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe those kind of things can be part of the discussion.
Part of the notes I made.
So that the neighbors can live in harmony together. Like I hate to stifle development. That's an important facility there and for this region. And so I hate to stifle that development, but I also hate to see detriment to the property of the neighboring property owner.
I made my point clear is that in that I spoke about the fact that we're not trying to hurt their business whatsoever. We would rather come up with a better solution than impeding on that back bank, which is already pretty fragile, and a lot of that foliage holds that together. Deer live there, you know, there's so many things that are just natural in that area, and, you know, all the birds and everything else like that, so it's terrible to think of that being taken away, and for the sake of a few hundred square feet that you could add over here, or add over here, there's other solutions, obviously. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, the solicitors might have a point here.
Well, I just want to point out, I mean, Martin, I think that's what he was alluding to. There has to be if this variance is granted, that's not a building permit, right? He has to the developer would have to come forward with a building permit, and then you'd have to apply with the code, and that's when you would, you know, as part of that process, may require geotechnical engineering, there may be, you know, information that's sought in order to approve the building permit, because you're talking about an extension to an existing building, right? So I think that's kind of what the point you were trying to make, is that this is just one thing. We don't know what the developer may come up, and after he, you know, hires an engineer or architect, whatever, it may only be something less because that's all that's feasible for the site.
Geotechnical report is part of every building permit application. What I was alluding to was the process ahead of the building development permit, which also provides some ability to look at certain things technically. But as you said, building permit itself includes technical aspects that have to do with the site composition and soil and all that sort of stuff. I'm not a building official, I'm a building code expert.
No, but
where that component isn't as part of a building permit.
right.
Okay? Okay. Go ahead and then speak right into that microphone.
just to speak to that point, no, a variance cannot be allowed before a building permit because it's a slippery slope that you've already allowed a variance, which means that you've allowed this to happen. That's not the order in which things go. So that being said, I mean, seriously.
Well, that is the order, the way that it goes, because
Yeah.
no
Go
one's
put your
going
light
to
on.
apply for a permit and hire an engineer and architect and do
Right on.
anything
Until they get a variance.
they need, unless they know the variance is going to be
And the
granted.
variance cannot be granted unless it satisfies all the abutting properties as well as it satisfies so many other criteria.
Well, I think
that you're
you heard from the
dismissing.
you heard from the development officer what their criteria is for granting the variance.
And he said he had no expertise in that. He just
Well,
said that.
I don't think that's what his report said. His report said the council can make any decision that he could, and he set out the criteria.
Beans and toast.
So what I'm understanding, one second. What I'm understanding is that, the variance first, wait a minute. That the variance can be granted, but then when it comes to the building permit will entail some of the technical questions.
Their addition will have to comply with the Nova Scotia Building Code. Right?
Yes.
And that's part of the process for a permit, development, not only a development permit, a building permit, right? And there, just like if there was no need for a variance, they were only going to go 10 feet, they'd still have to comply. If the building code said, okay, well, we need a geotechnical report, we need to ensure that there's enough, support for the retaining portions, that's where it would be determined. And it may be that, and then the developer would be forced to make a decision once they hear from the engineer and the architect, because there's much that goes into that. We don't know what the weight's going to be required. There's many things that we don't know, right?
You cannot allow a variance because it predicates the building permit application because you've allowed a variance. When we're saying we don't want the variance. So how can you give a variance, allow them to proceed, and then we have to fight the building permit next? No. We're fighting right now to say that this is not acceptable. The variance is not acceptable. Without the variance, the project does not go on. So they don't need to hire engineers or anything else like that because they don't have a variance.
And that's what council will make a decision tonight.
Okay, Councillor Heather, did you have a question?
Cart in front of the horse.
Are you good? You're good? Okay. Any more questions for these folks? Anything else you wanted to share?
No, thank you very much for your time. And,
Okay.
And I appreciate if anybody has any questions, I'm available for them at any time as well.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
My contact information is on.
Yep. And we have all that. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I guess I'm thinking of what Councillor Dares just spoke to. And is there a way for the the three property owners or the concerned property owners to be able to sit down and come to some kind of an agreement? I don't know.
There's nothing like that in the MGA. It's the town has to enforce
Put
its
that right on.
rules.
Sorry.
The town has to enforce its rules. Just, there's nothing in there that, or your permit or this or that is dependent upon what your neighbor might say. I mean, I don't know if there'd be any development in the town anywhere if that was a requirement.
You good? Okay. All right, well, thank you, folks. So I'm now going to ask the applicant or their representative if they have any comments or want to make a presentation. Yep, come right up. Yep, you guys can have your seats back and he's going to take over. Yep, thank you. And you can just state your name and introduce your position.
Hi, my name is Mike Pache. I represent Bayview Marine there, the property we're talking about. I'm part of the management team down there. We're looking to extend our building because we're growing at such a fast pace. We need more room for storage and for basically our store. It's our stock room. We're limited on what we have right now. So we've been looking at developing backwards, and basically when we build that bay door that they're talking about there, that's going to be part of that renovation. So then our stock room can go right up onto our main level where our boats are being built, and our employees can basically get their stock faster and more efficiently. But as well, we want to be able to help out with the boats that we haul up in the parking lot there and the customers that we get in the door. So we're hoping with this development we'll be able to employ more people and work better with the community, basically.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
That was easy. Okay, questions? Mr. Pache? Councillor Bell and then Councillor Heather.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Mr. Pache.
Hey.
So there have been some discussions this evening with regard to noxious fumes and sand escaping the facility.
The dust and stuff.
Yeah,
comes with the
dust
sanding
and
of
things.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering, is part of the reason that the back door is open now because you have a storage container in the back that you need to access? Why is the back door of the facility open? And would it be possible with the expansion to have a blank space, that isn't opening to the residential area,
Yeah.
either windows or doors that would funnel those kinds of noxious
Fumes and such.
Yeah, just the question is what your intent is on that, and if you're aware, have you had any complaints from
Not that
surround?
I'm aware of. No.
Yeah, so that's one of, that's obviously a first step, is to
Yeah.
be aware that it is an issue. And, it's a concern for me as a community resident. We want the industry in the community, obviously, it's really important, but we also we also want to make sure that we live as good neighbors. So I'm just wondering if you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, with the expansion, the door that's in the back there is going to be it'll be opening into the stock room. And the stock room is just going to be basically parts and such. So that will eliminate anything going out there. Currently, yes, we do go through that back door and we grab big sheets of core. They're 4x8 or variances in sizes, but we have to be able to bring those back into the building that way now. So with this development, it'll free up more space on our floor, which will allow us to store those items inside where we don't have room now.
So the doors don't have to be.
Then, so this expansion would actually create an internal buffer between the manufacturing floor and the outside.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Heather, did you have your?
That was my question.
Okay.
That back door will literally not exist or not be seen from the public, by the public?
Yes, there'll be a man door that will allow you to go off the street into the stock room, but again, it's just basically stock hydraulic parts and such like that, right?
Okay.
Councillor Cleveland?
So they're asking about the variance, but we've kind of missed the point of, like, in terms of expansion itself. Are you planning on using all 10 feet for expansion? Is that what you're going to do, is build the whole building out another 10 feet? 20 feet?
Yeah, 20 feet is what our plan is, I believe, yeah.
Okay, so it'll go right straight up into that abutment then, that area. What will you do beyond there? Like you'll have a 10 feet buffer area.
Yeah,
Will that just remain undeveloped? Is that the plan?
basically, yes.
Okay.
So right now, if you come off of Haskell Street, we have somewhat of a driveway there that allows you to get into where CCAN is and into that back bay door that's existing now.
Right.
And basically, that'll be your only way in to that building.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Off of what street, Haskell?
Yes, off of Haskell, there's a
That's
little
off the other
driveway that's
side.
developed there.
I see it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, just follow up on the same kind of thought. What about the height of the addition? Will it be the full height of the existing building?
No, I think it's only going to be 25 feet, I believe. But I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really seen too many of the plans for it, but
That's a big deal too.
How high is the original building, just to give it in context of the 20 feet?
it's probably close to 40 feet. I think our doors measure 28, and then they go up another 10, 15 feet above the doors. That allows us to get our boats out. I think we're around 28 to our door
Oh,
there.
right, okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have another question.
Oh, that's good.
And I know you're not the construction person or the planner of the building, but I just wonder, do you foresee having to impede into that embankment in terms of construction?
As far as my understanding, no, but again,
Okay, so you're going to build out 20 feet. Now you've got 10 feet extra. And so do you foresee that when the construction has taken place and there's equipment in there and everything, that will be impede onto the embankment and the property of the gentleman?
I don't believe so, but I'm not too sure.
Any other questions? I'm just looking at the notes because I took 3 pages of notes. I don't want to. Any other questions from you? Good? Yeah. I did write down that view from Main Street, but I mean, it's going to be lower. Yeah. So that's good. Things approved before consulting. Okay. We're good, folks? Just want to make sure everything's clear. Okay, Counselor Lesser?
I was just looking up for my own information. It does say that a variance approval is a certificate of permission that allows a property owner to obtain a building permit. So it does sound like the variance must come before the building permit, as you said. Yeah. So the variance, what our solicitor said, the variance has to come before the building permit, from what I've just read.
Okay? Yep. So we're good? Yep. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, council, we have the information from the parties relating to the 45 Water Street matter. Staff presentation outlined the development officer's decision. Council is required to make a decision on the issue. So is there anything you want to talk about now, separate from, asking these folks questions? Is there anybody want to bring anything up? Anything? I just want to make sure. It's a big deal for people. Okay? So we have two suggested motions here, and understanding that we can make any decision that the development officer would have had the right to make. And I can say from my perspective, I don't know what they all are. So if you have something on your mind, put it on the table like we always do, and make sure that, it's something we could do or that we couldn't. So there's a suggestion here that council hereby upholds the decision of the development officer to grant the yard setback variance and therefore dismisses the appeal by Michael R. Innes, representing the Bluewood Group, Inc., owners of 119 Main Street, and Randall Blauvelt, the co-owner of 10 Pearl Street. The other motion that could be put forward is that council hereby overturns the decision of the development officer to grant the yard setback variance, therefore allows the appeal of Michael R. Innes and Randall Blauvelt. So it's up to you, unless you have something else that you put on the floor. So we're looking for a motion. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would recommend that council uphold the decision of the development officer to grant the yard setback variance at 45 Water Street.
Thank you. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Do you have?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I just, I think that I'm recommending, I have heard nothing tonight that would cause me to doubt the staff's process in making the decision that they made. And as a general principle, I think that I feel it's important to provide staff with the support of council unless there is a reason that we find not to. And I'm satisfied with the information that we've received here tonight, that the process can go forward and that the residential and industrial concerns can be dealt with. So that's why I'm supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay then. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for coming in. We got a lot of information, and that's what we do. We put it all on the table, come out with a decision. We had previously read, we always come prepared, having read everything. I'd say 110% sure everybody's driven by the properties and taken a peek, and so we are upholding the development officer's decision. Thank you. What, you can ask a question.
So the development process after that, I've already spoken with the gentleman behind me now, and we are going to look at ways to make sure that everybody's
Can you answer that? Can you come up and answer it? So the question is, what kind of control is there? I was going to say, I think everybody's good neighbors, and, you didn't wish any harm on them, and I certainly know that company is top-notch, and they wouldn't, vice versa. So, go ahead.
Correct. As a rule of thumb, we always encourage applicants to engage neighbors prior to construction to ensure that any concerns are mitigated to as greater degree as possible. Now, there's no such requirement in any legislation that we use. It's really just being good neighbor and good business owner. The development permit, given again the regime we under, there's really no opportunity for input from the public. There is an input for back and forth between the development officer and the applicant's team, supported by consultants and a development officer being supported by our own staff. So there's opportunity for that to sort of address any issues that we foresee or anticipate. Building permit is a very technical process. Again, no public input. It is a submission, either complies with regulation or it does not. If it does not, it must be addressed unless variance is beyond, again, my understanding. It's a building official world, but that is a very technical process that, again, does not allow for any back and forth between public and a town hall.
Excellent. Good. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks everyone for coming and sharing. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just looking at how much we have left. Okay. What's that? Oh, absolutely, yeah. Okay, I'm going to start. 11D, so the 2024 Business Awards, and the motion there suggested would be that council be a gold sponsor of the 2024 Yarmouth Business Awards in the amount of $1,750.
So moved.
Okay, Councillor Dayers, second by Councillor Cleveland. Any discussion on this one? Go ahead, you're on.
Yeah, very, very quickly, given what the chamber brings to this community, this is great value for money, and I'm happy to support it.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Heather.
Yeah, I support this as well, but my question is this the same amount we gave last year? Was that we got gold sponsor as well, so it's in the budget, and okay, thanks.
Good. Anyone else? 748, we've got him, you've already done that, okay. Got the deputy. I hope today was successful. You're going to update us. We're going to let you say that later. Okay. Okay, so council advisory committees. On what? Oh, all those in favor of the 1750? Aye. Contrary? Whew. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Deputy, you're on for committee of the whole. Can we pass this to the deputy? Are you good with that?
I can do.
Okay. Are you good? Are they on your sheet or?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take them.
It's all good.
So I can follow.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cleveland.
Thank you, Your Worship. Drones, recommended motion that council directs staff to investigate the cost and logistics of a drone display for Canada Day 2025.
Okay, so moved. Second by Councillor Lesser. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. I was just going to say, the reason we put this is that there's a million reasons, but, you know, lately it's a real issue with the fireworks, and we have to, I think when you know better, you do better. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Recommended motion that council repeal personnel policy 1994 health and wellness policy, harassment and discrimination policy, and adopt the new personnel policy.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Can we open one of those doors? Just because we always have them open for... Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. We never had the doors closed for council, although we did put the glass in for that. So I see I'm still back in 2012.
Recommend a motion that council amend the council committee meetings agenda policy to include correspondence intending to influence a decision to be added to an agenda.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Recommend a motion that council purchase 2 Remember Them murals from our Legion.
So moved. From the Legion. Yeah.
It's just from the Legion, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I want to just clarify that. I believe that's Whitworth Legion.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
And, yeah. And the other, okay, go ahead. So did somebody second that? Thank you. Okay, so discussion. So we did figure out 2 spots, and then if we come up with others, we can always purchase later. We were at, Bell and I were actually, Councillor Bell, sorry, we were at a tea at Yarmouth Heights, and all the residents were out, and a couple of the gentlemen had the Legion pictures out. I think they were salesmen, I'm pretty sure, but we saw them, like the same size, I believe, as here, and they were excited that we had purchased a couple and that we would certainly look into more, so it's good. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Recommend a motion that council send a letter of thanks to Friends of the AGNS Western Branch for the work they have done to reopen the art space formerly occupied by the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, and congratulate them on the upcoming opening on August 3rd, well, now it's opening on August 3rd, of an art exhibit featuring local artist Nelson Surratt.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Okay. Any discussion? It was absolutely amazing. It's world class, top notch. The place was packed. I think they said 157 to 160 people. And so much excitement in that room. And how perfect a Nelson Surratt exhibit, which was actually donated by Sheila Nichols to, and it's all about the Acadian. It's all about the Acadians, just before CMA. And actually, isn't this the first Acadian month that's been proclaimed? So it's all, it all fell into place. So moved, have we got a seconder? Yes, okay.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried.
Recommend a motion that council directs staff to issue a request for proposals for a Parks, Recreation, and Culture master plan.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this one? Go ahead, Deputy.
Just kind of a comment. I came by South End Playground tonight. I know it's, my eagle eye was on once again, and I noticed there's some buildings that aren't there, and I know that's in the progression too. We're getting that out and some public engagement coming with South Church and some others. So it's just nice to get this off the ground, and it's nice that culture is included in this and that we can move forward with all these things, and just nice to see things going forward in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I really want to point out the fact, and there was a lot of discussion about it, and I wasn't completely convinced myself, but as I've thought more and more on it, I'm very pleased to see that it's Parks, Recreation, and Culture. So it's really good to see. I know that they don't necessarily all have to be done by the same person, but they do need to be acknowledged, and so it's really good to see.
You know, in saying that, we had some great discussion on that, and I think we all learned quite a bit that night, you know, and the ability to put those together is, I think we all get on the same page, and it's great to go up the next level of learning. Did we vote on that one? Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Just following into the Eagle Eye category, I wanted to make an observation that on Friday evening, there were 2 marked police cruisers at South Playground speaking with kids, and they were not there to make an arrest. They were there to just be in the community. So we're very, very happy to see that, and I thought perhaps council would like to know that there's more than one eagle eye at the table.
I'm glad you shared that. It's important. It's the same as at the schools. We all agree. Like, it's so important to get out and build that relationship with the youth, and it goes so much further. You know, like picking up a basketball, or Councillor Dares, I know you used to do that. You know, just go out there and hang out with the kids. So yeah, pretty neat. Of the park. Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I too drove by the park and took a look at the buildings that had disappeared, and I can tell you that from a police officer's perspective, it's 2 less places to hide.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's great that they're gone, and hopefully we can develop that area and make it nice.
I agree. Did we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. I know the process. We get so excited. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Okay. Just let me know when I can talk. Recommended motion that council send a letter of acknowledgement on the plaque of appreciation received from the Sikh community.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yeah. We're all looking around, seeing the activity outside, and it's
Yeah.
folks are walking by and taking pictures of the park. Looks absolutely amazing. I think every council member that walked in tonight said something about that. It's fantastic. You know, the Acadian flags and the banners and everything looks beautiful. We're really excited. Exactly, right? There you go. Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to vote on that.
I think we did. Did we? Yeah, we did.
Just checking to see if you remember. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, holy cow. Recommended motion that council direct staff to investigate the sidewalk on Huntington Street.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Lesser. Discussion? Go ahead.
I just went by the other night after our meeting to look at it again, and it is it's a strange setup. And I realized where it stops is where I was born. I have a feeling my dad might have put a stop to it. So I'm trying to right the wrong. But I was born on the house where it stops, on Huntington, and then my dad sold the property. But I have no idea. He's not alive to ask, but I have a feeling he probably had something to do with stopping the sidewalk. So.
Deputy Mayor?
I'd just like to say I always appreciate when citizens advocate for themselves in a respectful manner and bring this up. Oftentimes, you know, they'll paintbrush if council doesn't care and this and that, but when people bring something forward in a respectful manner and ask for something to be done, here we are approving it and making sure it goes on the books and doing what we can to see what we can do in the future. So thank you for Mr. Romero for handling that way, and anyone who's watching now, this is the best way to get things done. Speak up, speak out, contact us, and we're always happy to do what we can to work together.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Nope. Okay, and then number 2, Yarmouth Regional Emergency. There's nothing for that. Okay, good. All right, thank you, Councillor. Citizen Advisory Committees, Planning Advisory, Councillor Cleveland.
That's me again. Recommended motion that council pass first reading to the proposed development agreement, attachment 1, to allow for short-term rentals at 211 Argyle Street.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay. Public transit. That's you, Deputy Mayor.
I recommend a motion that council proceed with a pilot project that will provide free ridership over the next few years, led by the Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources and Renewable Clean Transportation Division.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Go ahead.
So this came up at our transit committee. I'm sure the CAO can speak to it, but I think it's a great opportunity for our area to promote our transit with a new one on the way and some possible other improvements that are coming. I think this is a great time to just jump right in and, you know, push forward as we can to make sure our transit gets used as much as possible.
Pending funding.
Yeah, so that's the only point I wanted to make, Your Worship, is it says proceed, but it's proceed with the application, right? And hopefully we get approved and have good news.
Good stuff. Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Go ahead, Deputy.
Recommended motion that the mayor, deputy mayor, and CAO explore opportunities for potential partnerships with the route change.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Good stuff. Okay. Reports for information. Mayor's report. I don't have a report, just an awareness of the fact that the Congrès Mondial Acadien is here starting this week. Actually, I think on Saturday they have opening ceremonies. They'll go for 10 days, I believe it is. It's going to get tremendously busy. I actually took a couple photos on Main Street today. It was just bopping. I don't know what other word to use, but there were people, there's been people, you know, as the CAO's noticed, because we can see out the windows here, there's people in the park, there's people in the restaurants. It's just, it's a busy time, and we understand up to 40,000 people will be in this area to celebrate, you know, Acadians and everything that goes along with this. So many activities. I just hope everybody gets out there and takes advantage of it and learns something extra that they didn't know, has a little bit of fun. If you hadn't had Roppy Pie, I can't understand that, but if you haven't had it, now's the time to try it. Go ahead, Councillor Dares.
Just that I've got a couple of reports I'd like to get. Just
Okay.
brief, and I will, respecting the time of night, I will try to be brief. First, at the Yarmouth County Solid Waste Park, I just wanted to update council that we've been successful in a grant application in the amount of approximately $55,000 towards a reuse center, which would allow us to salvage items that still have residual value from the landfill and offer them and repurpose them back into the community. So that grant actually represents a 75% of the overall cost, so that's good news. I also wanted to provide a brief update on where we're at the airport right now. So there have been some activity out there. The Atlantic Canada Airport Association represents about 14 different airports in this region, and we've joined up with the other airports, and there's been an economic impact report awarded to CanMac. That's going to provide us with the present situation, what's the economic impact of the airport today, and what potential there is for the future. So we're looking forward to that. The Can Export Investment Attraction Toolkit, we're doing a SWOT analysis. That's a 50% cost shared by Global Affairs Canada, and it's going to explore solutions. The budget that we had for that was $75,000, and the contract has been awarded at a cost of $55,000, so that's good news as well. The Western Region Enterprise Network is undertaking a population scan, and we should have those numbers by the end of this month or early September. We've also engaged NPR, National Public Relations. We met with them for about an hour and a half recently. It was very timely because there was a a deadline of August 2nd to submit a high-level brief to the Federal Treasury. That was done. Gordon Taylor Liu, who's our contact in Ottawa, was able to put together that brief in a very short period of time and have it submitted in time for it to be considered for the government financing next year. We're also probably this week or next week going to be issuing a tender for or a contract with the engineer to get a cost to rehabilitate the runway. That's hopefully going to be awarded in the next week or so. So we should have the total cost of what's required out there to save that airport, to keep it running for many years in the future. So the runway is the biggest situation, the runway and the runway lights, and that's the thing that the task force has been focused on. So we are hopeful that we can make submissions to the senior levels of government sometime later this year or early next year.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor?
I'd just like to say the other night we met as the Mariner Center Board of Directors, and the capital projects for this year were passed and will be coming up to council soon. So just a heads up that they might need a little bit of money to go through, but things are going good there. So let's keep her going.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Heather. As soon as you turn your light off, you lose your spot. Go ahead.
My next,
Yeah,
okay.
and then Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Communities in Bloom this past week or so, we had the pleasure of awarding 12 best front yard gardens again in the community. And once again, we divided the town into 3 sections, south, north, and central, gave 3 in each of those areas, and gave 3 to commercial. So it's a very happy and pleasant job to take on, and people are always glad and surprised when we come knocking at their door. So, and they were all well-deserved front yard gardens. It's not all about flowers. It's just about maintenance of property and helping the town to look good. So,
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Best for last. Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering if there is anything to update council on regarding the deer management survey that was conducted earlier this spring.
I don't believe we've had the report in our hands as of yet, and so I'm not sure. We certainly didn't expect the delay to take this long. And we have no real. Next week? We should get it next week. It's nice to have a little helper. I can't understand what the delay is. It would seem to me that the study was done in early April, and here we are, mid-August. But there's really not much point in the Deer Management Strategy Group getting together until we have that report in our hands.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about the Congra Mondial. Yeah, the CMA. There are daily schedules available here at Town Hall in the lobby. If you're interested in knowing what the events are, they're tear-off, so you can take one with you. There's also an app that was released today. So if you look that up on either Apple website or whatever, or Google, you can, or Android, you can find that, download it, and I'm sure it has a schedule and lots of information in it. So just for people who are wondering what's going on, you can get paper-based right here at Town Hall and other places around town, or throughout the region, or you can go online, get yourself the app, and you'll have all that information right in your hand.
Yeah, he tries to talk technical.
Friend.
And that's why you have to help.
Go ahead, Deputy.
So a little guilty pleasure plus plug, I guess. Today I was late because I was at the J Strong golf tournament, where the community and others came together to donate almost $35,000. 2 weeks ago we had a softball tournament and we raised just over $18,000. So about $55,000 has been put into our fund to make sure that no kid has a barrier financially to be getting into sports. And These things don't happen without the support of many, whether you be a volunteer, a participant, a business that does it, you share it on Facebook. This is J Strong is us. And we make sure that our kids can play sports if they want to, and I'm very proud of that. But I'm very thankful for the continued support that we continue to get time and time again. So thank you very much.
Bravo. Good stuff. Anyone else? I just have one small thing, but it's a big thing. So our returning officer is working, obviously. There's an election October the 19th. Correct me anytime I'm wrong. Is it the 20th? He's going to find out. There's a 19th, okay? So there's an election in October, municipal election. The returning officer is here. He's at Town Hall in the basement. He's here most mornings from 8:30 until noon. If anybody has any questions, if you want to go to our Facebook page, the Town of Yarmouth Facebook page, or the website, you can get information on the email, the phone number, or you can certainly drop in the morning. I'll tell you what's most important. The returning officer's job is a big one and an important one. And he's there basically to uphold your right to run if you wish to run, and everything falls in place. He's also there to uphold everyone's right to vote. Everyone that has a right to vote, he's there to uphold that. And that means, get on, make sure you're on the voters list. And there's nothing wrong with double checking. I know a couple people, I think they noticed that a couple people were missing off of the list. So we don't want anybody to, don't wait, but if you do wait and you don't get your proper documents, you can certainly call him at that time, but better to do it early and make sure that you're on that list. So he's there for that for October. Go ahead, Councillor Lesser.
Just wondering, maybe Councillor Cleveland can answer this, but is there something that can go out possibly to newcomers, like through REN, to indicate that they have the right to vote now that if they're in Canada and have been here, whatever? I don't know if that's just a population that we have, a growing population that they probably would love to be able to vote here, I think.
They have to be citizens, yes. But I did reach out to YReach, to Elizabeth. She had a group in here, I think it was yesterday. Anyway, and she's going to send an email, and she's been talking with the returning officer already. So you're right. It's tremendously important because everybody doesn't know the process. They don't know what rights they have. And it's not, it's not who you vote for, it's that you exercise that right to vote. And, in Canada, that's just so important to us. We just want to make sure everybody's on the list. So she is going to make sure that she has chatted with the returning officer, but that everyone she's in contact with will have that information right in their hands. So good catch. And whatever you're doing at the REN, same thing, that people are aware of it, because we don't, I think that's part of people wanting to be in Canada. I can vote without, threat to my life, or not always, but, but yeah, so that's important. Okay, anybody else want to put anything on the table? We're good? All right. Approval of invoices, that the various invoices be approved for payment. Okay, all those in favor? Aye, contrary? Motion carried. Date of next meeting, we have September the 12th. Okay, and then motion to go in camera. Okay, thank you, everyone.